Hey folks, it is David Wills with TED-IELTS again. It's been a long time since my last video. That's because I've been really busy marking people's essays. I run a writing correction service where I take people's IELTS essays, I give them a score, I tell them all their mistakes, I give them some advice, and I write them a sample answer, a sample Band 9 answer. I've been so busy with that I have not had time to make any new videos, but today I thought I would take one of my sample Band 9 answers and just write it for you so that you can see how I do this. So first of all, when we're going to sit down and write an IELTS essay, what we want to do is to plan it out. You don't have to take a long time to do this, and the more you write and the more you get used to this, the more you can just do the planning in your head in a few minutes. As someone who has written thousands of essays, I can do this like so easily. But for you, you're going to need to take a little time, write down some ideas. You'll see my basic structure here. For problem and solution essays, this structure is always really easy. One paragraph problems, one paragraph solutions. You don't need to think any more than that. But we do need to think about what the problems are. Because in your head, you may have like 5 or 10 different problems for this particular situation. And you shouldn't just list them. It is better to pick 1 or 2 and then develop them, explain them in some detail. This is the way that you're going to get a high score for task achievement. So here, the problems are related to the issues stated above. Young people tend to move out of the countryside and into the cities, live in the cities, and old people stay in the countryside. What problems will this cause? Right, so, okay, you might say some problems, the old people will feel lonely. You might say the countryside will be empty. You might say that the young people will miss the wisdom of the elderly. And you might talk about the poverty that comes to the countryside. So those are 4 ideas. You shouldn't think of too many, and we're certainly not going to use them all. So which of these is the most convincing? Well, feeling lonely is probably true, but it's not something you could really talk about at length, I think. Missing the old people's wisdom. I don't know why I even said that, but there's some truth to that, but I don't think we'll pick that. I think the most important one is poverty. And this maybe we could use. I would definitely focus on poverty because I think we can talk about that in more detail. Then we've got to think about the solutions, and we'll think about the solutions to the chosen problems. So first of all, how would we fix the problem of poverty? Well, if the young people are moving to the city, they're basically taking all the money and all the jobs and everything with them. And then back in the countryside, there's just old people sitting around not earning money. So how do we fix this? That is a difficult problem, of course. And also often that is the way in IELTS. I would say we might want to raise the issue of taxes. So back here, we might add that in, taxation. So we might talk about changing tax laws. My theory about this would be if young people move to the big city, the taxes they earn are going to be spent within the big city by the big city governments, local governments. Whereas in the countryside, maybe the money is no longer going there. So it's generating nothing and there's this deterioration. So I think that's a very important solution there. And if we were to talk about the countryside being empty, well, we could talk about another proposed solution, and this relates to the first idea as well, which would be the idea of remote work. So maybe the young people might move back to the countryside if they're able to work online and earn money there. So this could actually keep the young people in the countryside to keep it fuller and more vibrant, but also would keep the money in the countryside to some extent. I think then we have a pretty good structure there. You notice I've not really written anything about introduction or conclusion. They're pretty formulaic. I think an introduction is usually going to have 2 or 3 sentences. If it has 3 sentences, then we'll start with this big idea. We'll broadly introduce the topic. Then we'll have a more focused idea. And then we'll have our opinion, which is the really specific part at the end of that. For the conclusion, we just summarize, usually 1 sentence, maybe 2. So let's keep this structure in mind, and then we shall begin writing. So here's my introduction. It can be seen that nowadays young people often move to the city in order to work. So I've basically summarized the issue in 1 sentence. I didn't feel it was necessary to go for the big statement and then a more specific one because it can be said very easily there. I've then had a sort of essay outline because there's no opinion needed for this. So when we're asked to discuss causes and solutions or problems and solutions, then what we'll do is we'll just have a sentence, 1 or 2 sentences that outline the essay. It says there are various problems associated with this. It is important to check your essay for mistakes. Even a native speaker, professional writer like me, I make so many mistakes when I'm typing. I have to go back and read again to check them. There are various problems associated with this, which will be discussed in this essay, alongside several potential solutions to these problems. So this is pretty straightforward. It tells the reader what to expect. Now let's start paragraph 2. Right, here's my second paragraph then. It says, the main problem that arises from young people going to work in cities is the poverty that results in the countryside. So this is a topic sentence. It's going to give us the main idea. The next sentences will explain and support that. This is because the only people left there are elderly people that usually do not work. It's important to use words like usually to give specific information. If I said elderly people never work, that's not true. Many IELTS students write things like this. They say always, never, everyone. Bad idea, bad idea. This will really cause your score to be lowered for task achievement. Because of this, the income generated by young people, as well as the tax from that income that goes to fund local governments, is all spent in big cities. So this is a quite complicated sentence, but it basically says that the young people's money and the taxes on the young people's money are now going to the cities instead of the countryside. Small villages and towns suffer because there is little funding for important projects. So all of these sentences, they start with the very big idea, and then each sentence supports it and explains it. This is very important for coherence and cohesion and for task achievement. This development of ideas that are linked logically. I've got one more idea. So in this paragraph, I've got 2 main ideas that are connected, and I'll add the less important one second. It says, in addition to this, with all the young people gone, the countryside becomes empty and can rapidly deteriorate, with houses falling into disrepair alongside the failing infrastructure caused by the lack of taxation. So basically, my last point, being the second important one, is the idea of the emptiness of the countryside and the resulting problems from that, such as properties falling apart. But I've also alluded again to the idea of the infrastructure, meaning roads and things, that is suffering from the lack of tax revenue. Now I'm going to write my third paragraph, which will be about the solutions to this problem. right, so paragraph 3. In order to solve these problems, there are two main solutions. So for coherence and cohesion, you want to have sentences like this that introduce the purpose of the paragraph and which explain what's coming next. First of all, a change in tax law could potentially fix the issue of taxes only being spent in the cities. In Japan, villages were suffering because young people went to work in the city and their taxes went into city governments. But the national government implemented a new law that said a portion of their taxes should go to their place of birth rather than their place of residence. So here I've given my first idea, and then I've immediately given an example of how this could successfully be done, or how this has successfully been done, which also functions to explain my idea. So an example and an explanation can kind of be the same thing sometimes. I've added further explanation just to clarify. This means that rural areas can still receive some tax revenue that can be used for local investment. Then I'm giving my second idea. In addition, encouraging remote work can help reverse the trend of young people moving to cities. This would allow them to stay in the countryside and work, with their income being spent in local businesses and their taxes going to local governments. So in this case, I'm just showing how by encouraging remote work, the problems of the poverty that exist in the villages and of the village being empty can be solved by people working from home in the countryside. For my conclusion, I'll keep it short and simple, 2 sentences. In conclusion, when young people move to the city for work, it causes poverty in the countryside. So I focused on the main issue. However, this problem can be solved through changes in tax laws and a shift to remote work. All right, so that was my answer, and it is 325 words. So it's a little long. Generally, I think you should write more like 280 words. But this is because I've given very developed answers for my body paragraphs. If you're struggling with time, you should keep it a little shorter. You don't need to write this much. But saying a little more can help you give more detail, more explanation, things that can really help you for task achievement, coherence, and cohesion. Although remember, if you write too much, you're going to make more mistakes with vocabulary and grammar. So you've got to try and find a balance there. You also need to think about time. I can write very fast because I'm a native speaker and professional writer. Altogether, this essay would probably take me about 5 minutes if I was just writing it and not speaking. But for you, you need to practice and focus on writing this within the time limit and then finding time at the end to check your answers for mistakes. Hopefully I've not made too many mistakes. I think when I read over there, I found a couple as I was saying it aloud. All right, I hope you found this video useful. You can check out TED-IELTS.com for more writing advice. And if you want some professional help, you can check out my writing correction service. I'll put the link in the description below. Goodbye.